All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're wading into U.S. politics, folks. It's a jungle out there.
Yeah.
But hey, someone's got to do it right.
You said it.
Specifically, we're going back to 2020. You know, that presidential election that felt like it was never going to end.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Nail biter for sure.
Exactly. We're looking at it through a really interesting lens. We found this audio clip. Trump yelled poder total. It's in Spanish, but we've got the translations, don't worry.
It sounds intriguing. What's the angle here?
Well, the speaker in the clip, they predicted Trump's win, like way early on, and they weren't even surprised.
Really? Now that you mention it, I do remember some people calling it, but most seemed shocked. What made the speaker so sure?
That's what we're going to unpack.
Yeah.
They talk about how Trump was racking up delegates, and it was like they saw the writing on the wall while everyone else was glued to the exit polls.
Interesting. The clip dives into why they think Trump won, right?
Yeah, they argue that a lot of folks, even the experts, miss this whole undercurrent of, like, economic anxiety and cultural resentment, too. Like, people were frustrated, and it wasn't really being reflected in the mainstream media or the polls.
I think there's something to that. You know, sometimes the narratives we see don't capture the whole picture.
Right. And it wasn't just the presidency. The Republicans did really well overall.
Oh, absolutely. They snagged a slim majority in the House, even flipped the Senate, which is no small feat. And then you had the Supreme Court leaning conservative.
So basically, Republicans were in a powerful position, all three branches of government.
Pretty much. Huge advantage in shaping the political landscape, you know?
And the speaker in the clip, they claim the Democrats totally misread the situation. Like, they were banking on this idea that a Biden win was a done deal and that things would just naturally swing more liberal.
So they're saying Democrats underestimated how divided the country really was.
Exactly. And the speaker makes a really bold claim. They say a lot of Americans, even those who aren't super political, saw liberalism as, like, a gateway to communism.
Whoa, that's a pretty loaded statement. Not all liberals are communists, obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely a generalization. But the speaker's point is that this fear, even if it's not totally accurate, was a major factor for a lot of voters.
I can see that. It definitely ties into a certain type of rhetoric, the kind that paints any left-leaning policy as, like, the first step towards socialism, then bam, communism.
Fear is a motivator, right. And that leads us to another point the speaker brings up, identity politics. They're pretty critical of it.
How so?
They think all that focus on identity politics, it actually backfired, made the divisions even worse. Like, emphasizing how different groups vote based on their race or religion or whatever, it just creates more separation.
That's an interesting take. I mean, don't we need to acknowledge those differences and address them?
The speaker doesn't deny that. It's more about how it was being done. Like, it became this divisive thing instead of a unifying thing.
Makes sense. So if overdoing identity politics is part of the problem, what's the solution?
Well, the speaker argues that, at the end of the day, most Americans, regardless of their background, see themselves as Americans first.
Right, that shared national identity?
Yeah, and they point to the fact that the election showed a lot of diversity of thought within different groups. Like, plenty of Hispanic and African-American voters went for more conservative candidates.
Which challenges those assumptions about how certain groups vote as a bloc.
Exactly. So there's this idea of a common American identity that goes beyond those categories.
Interesting. But the speaker isn't all sunshine and rainbows about the 2020 election. They have some pretty strong opinions on the campaign itself.
Oh, yeah. They call it the most dishonest, dirty, and just plain inhumane campaign in U.S. history. No punches pulled there.
Wow. And their point being that all that negativity set a bad precedent for future elections.
Definitely. And that brings us to the big, scary takeaway. The speaker's really worried about the future of democracy in America.
Yeah, they use this term pseudo-democracy, which is pretty unsettling.
Basically, the idea is that even if we still have elections, the outcomes are being manipulated. So it's democracy in name only, not in practice.
That's a chilling thought. Makes you wonder what it means for democracy globally, too. I mean, if the U.S., which is supposed to be this beacon of democracy, is slipping, what does that say to other countries?
Huge implications, right?
Definitely gives you pause. I mean, this whole conversation, it really exposes some deep cracks in our political system. And whether you agree with the speaker or not, they're forcing us to confront some hard truths.
It's a lot to process. I feel like my brain's doing backflips right now.
I hear you. But hey, that's why we do these deep dives, right? To challenge our assumptions, look at things from different angles, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, we really encourage you to do the same. Keep learning, keep questioning, and form your own opinions.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the 2020 election. Until next time.
See you then.